Welcome back to our podcast, everyone. Today we have an episode that I named The Crown and the Cloak. So I'm going to let you find out what the topic of our episode today is. So we are going to dive deep into a story of absolute power, devastating betrayals, and a deep family rift that reshaped the world forever. It's a story about how a massive empire was forged in blood and politics, split right down its spiritual center, and yet somehow birthed one of the greatest intellectual explosions in human history. Yes, ladies and gents, it's the Islamic Golden Age. Guess no more. Now, to understand how we got there, we have to travel back to the 7th century. Imagine an empire expanding faster than anyone thought possible. But at the very center of this new world superpower, a question is brewing, a dangerous one. Who has the right to lead? On one side, you have the Shiites, derived from Shi'at Ali, meaning the party of Ali. Their stance was deeply spiritual. They believed the leadership, the Caliphate, belonged strictly to the family of the Prophet Muhammad, starting with his cousin and son-in-law, Ali ibn Abi Talib. On the other side, you have the Umayyads. They were in an incredibly wealthy, politically sharp, aristocratic clan from Mecca. They viewed the empire through the lens of statehood, stability, and tribal power. The spark that lit the fire? Well, the assassination of the third Caliph, Osman, who happened to be an Umayyad. When Ali finally took the mantle as the fourth Caliph, he didn't immediately punish Osman's killers. To the Umayyad governor of Syria, a brilliant and ruthless man named Muawiyah, this was an unpardonable sin, or depending on how you look at history, the perfect political opportunity. This showdown led to the Battle of Siffin in 657 CE. Ali's forces were on the verge of winning when Muawiyah's troops pulled off a legendary psychological trick. They pinned pages of the Quran to the tips of their spears, calling for arbitration. Ali, a man of deep faith, stopped the fighting. But that compromise fractured his own support, and just a few years later, in 661, Ali was assassinated by a radical splinter group. Muawiyah stepped into the vacuum, seized the throne, and established the Umayyad Caliphate in Damascus. The empire became a hereditary monarchy. But the real tragedy, the moment that permanently severed the Sunni and the Shia paths, happened in the year 680. Muawiyah passed away, leaving the empire to his son Yazid. Down in Medina, Ali's younger son, Hussein, refused to pledge allegiance to a man he saw as a corrupt tyrant. The people of Kufa, a city in modern-day Iraq, sent letters to Hussein, begging him to lead them in revolt. They promised him an army. They promised him protection. And Hussein set out across the desert with a tiny band of roughly 72 family members and supporters, including women and children. But as he approached Iraq, the Umayyad governor intercepted him at a place called Karbala. And those people of Kufa who promised to fight, they were terrified by Umayyad military might. They abandoned him. The Umayyad army surrounded Hussein's tiny group, cutting off their access to the nearby Euphrates River. For days, in the blistering desert heat, Hussein's family went thirsty. On the 10th day of the month of Muharram, the Umayyads attacked. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Hussein was decapitated, his infant son killed in his arms, and the surviving women of the Prophet's family were paraded in chains back to Damascus. For Shiites, Karbala became the ultimate symbol of martyrdom and betrayal, turned a political dispute into an eternal, emotional, spiritual identity. For the next several decades, the Umayyads ruled with an iron fist. Geopolitically, they were unstoppable. They pushed the empire's borders from the edges of India all the way to Spain. But the Umayyad Empire had a fatal flaw. They ran the empire like an exclusive Arab club. If you were a non-Arab Muslim, Persian, Berber, or Syrian, you were treated as a second-class citizen. You paid higher taxes and couldn't get top government jobs. By the year 750 CE, the anger reached a boiling point. A new underground movement emerged, led by the Abbasids, cousins of the Prophet. They pulled off a masterclass in political manipulation. They went to the angry Persians and they went to the heavily grieving Shiites and they whispered, "Join us. Help us overthrow the corrupt Umayyads, and we will place a rightful member of the Prophet's family on the throne." The trick worked. The Abbasid revolution swept through the empire, hunting down and brutally executing almost every single Umayyad royal they could find. Once the Abbasids took the crown, they delivered the ultimate betrayal. They sidelined the Shiites, who had bled for their cause, kept the power for themselves, and moved the capital east to a brand new, purpose-built, circular city, Baghdad. And this brings us to the twist in our story. Out of the ashes of this brutal, bloody regime change, the Islamic Golden Age was born. The Abbasids realized that an empire stretching across multiple continents couldn't be ruled by raw military force alone. They needed administration, trade, and science. They built the famous House of Wisdom, Baytul Hikmah, in Baghdad. They launched the translation movement, sending scouts across the known world to buy up every manuscript they could find. Greek philosophy, Indian mathematics, Persian literature, Egyptian engineering. They brought it all to the Baghdad, translated it into Arabic, and synthesized it. Think about the concepts we take for granted today. Al-Khwarizmi invented algebra right here. Think about medicine. Ibn Sina, known as Avicenna, wrote medical textbooks that Europe used for the next 500 years. Optics, astronomy, the invention of modern paper, mill systems that made books cheap and accessible. It all flourished because the state funded thinkers, regardless of their religion or background. For nearly 5 centuries, Baghdad was the intellectual capital of the planet. But no golden age lasts forever. By the 13th century, the Abbasid Empire had grown bloated, decentralized, deeply divided. Decades of religious infighting, political decay left it incredibly vulnerable. And then the ultimate storm arrived from the east, the Mongols. In 1258, Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, marched on Baghdad. The Abbasid Caliph, completely misjudging his enemy, refused to surrender. The Mongol siege was swift and merciless. When the walls fell, the destruction was absolute. Baghdad was sacked. Historians write that the waters of the Tigris River ran black with the ink of millions of books thrown from the House of Wisdom, and then ran red with the blood of the city's inhabitants. The Caliph himself was rolled into a rug, trampled to death by horses. A Mongol tradition to avoid spilling royal blood on the earth. Just like that, the Golden Age's beating heart stopped. It's a breathtaking arc, isn't it? From a family dispute over a throne in the deserts of Arabia to a global superpower to an intellectual renaissance, and finally, a total destruction. But the legacy never truly died. The scientific foundations laid in Baghdad paved the way for European Renaissance, and the theological rift born at Siffin and Karbala still shapes the geopolitics of the Middle East to this exact day. History isn't just a list of dates, it's a chain reaction. Thanks for listening to this episode. Hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and let me know in the comments. Do you think the Golden Age could have survived if the empire hadn't been so internally divided? Until next time, keep questioning and keep looking beneath the surface. Goodbye.